potential food crisis has become immediate, medium, and long-term strategies. The short-term strategy entails revitalizing food supply through specific interventions like the distribution of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to counteract the effects of subsidy removal, fostering collaboration between the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security and the Federal Ministry of Water Resources for efficient farmland irrigation, ensuring year-round food production, and addressing price volatility by establishing a national commodity board. This board will continually assess and regulate food prices, maintaining a strategic food reserve for stabilizing prices of crucial grains and other food items. I wish to emphasize that the government is not unaware of the fears being expressed in some quarters about the plight of farmers, particularly regarding their security while working on their farms. I wish to assure you that we will engage our security architecture to protect the farms and the farmers so that farmers can return to the farmlands without fear of attacks. We won't only make it safe for farmers to return to their farms, but we will also ensure the activation of land banks. There is currently 500,000 hectares of land already mapped that will be used to increase the availability of arable land for farming, which will immediately impact food output. This government will also collaborate with mechanization companies to clear more forests and make them available for farming, while the Central Bank of Nigeria will also continue to play a major role in funding the agricultural value chain.
Okay, welcome back. So let's focus on some of the issues making the rounds in the polity. But we've got two gentlemen joining us here in the studios. Ladan Sali is a former DG FRCN, he's a policy analyst, former team lead, Media Advisory Committee of PDP Campaign Council. Sitting beside him is Salihu Lukman, who is a former vice chairman, APC Northwest. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Let's kick off from this matter that came through yesterday concerning the trial of former CBN governor. That comment seems to be everywhere. The SGF talking about signature being forged, and it's quite shocking to a lot of people. People don't even know what to expect anymore. And so even though, yes, it's at a trial stage, it's going on, so we'll wait and see. It appears it will be a long-drawn trial. Who knows? But hearing that comment alone, there's several things that come to people's minds, but I don't know what it was with your perspective when you heard it, and did you feel, oh God, how could this have happened? Or what did you think when you heard it?
Well, I mean, look, my attitude is to say, well, all this come back to the whole issue of opening up to really evaluate our experiences between 2015 and now. And that in doing so, I think we just have to be courageous enough to admit that a lot of the things that have happened were not expected and went outside the whole promise we have made to Nigerians. And a number of those things, and my honest view is that, look, it's not to be defensive. It's really, really to begin to check where have we gone wrong, to produce a government where a number of those things happened, when our critique of PDP before 2015 was that all those things were possible and that one of our big promises was that we were going to stop corruption. And all those are now coming out to show that we are weak. Now, my honest conclusion is that, look, most of those things happened because as a party, that is APC, we have really, whatever is the failure of Buhari, and I have seen many of our leaders complaining about or defending the current government that they inherited problem from Buhari. Whatever is the failure of Buhari is a reflection of the failure of our party. Our inability, the important thing, the attraction of democracy, is that political parties will be able to regulate the conduct of leaders they produce on their platform. We criticize PDP because the model of PDP leadership from the time of Obasanjo to the time we defeated them and produced President Buhari, was basically that the president is the leader of the party, you know, and because of that, the party is weak in terms of influencing initiative of the president. And what appears is that we basically perfected that. All our promise about change almost collapsed immediately, and we can give explanation in terms of how that happened. The first thing is that we rode on the back of former President Buhari because he had such a cultist followership, you know, and everybody in the party wanted to ride on that to ensure we were able to defeat PDP. And after defeating PDP, the first thing is that we were not able to influence from day one. If it is appointment, if it is policy decision, some of the campaign promises were even disowned, you know, and we were not able to correct that. Now, moving forward, and for me, one of the things that why I still continue to make the point, we stood up and really engaged the leadership of President Buhari to ensure that a level playing field is produced within the party so that President Asuwaju could emerge as the candidate of the party, is based on the expectation that at least with President Asuwaju will begin to change a number of some of those things. And what is playing out now is almost like business as usual. And I don't want to engage the debate based on defending President Asuwaju. I want to engage the debate based on really putting pressure on President Asuwaju to rise to the occasion and justify the votes we got from Nigerians in such a way that all these anomalies that are unfolding are beginning to be corrected. I think that would be my position.
How did it come across to you, Mr. Gordon?
Well, numb with shock. And I want to say, you know, in all manner of, you know, with all manner of seriousness and sincerity, that we are in dire straits, mainly because we have found ourselves in almost a sinkhole economically, trying to get out of it. You know, the challenges are not only daunting and enormous, but almost seemingly unsurmountable. But here we are. We have a government in place. And what I see that is shocking, if the stories that, you know, made the headlines yesterday and probably the day before concerning the $6.2 million, you know, that was said to have been authorized and taken out of the CBN by, on the instruction of the former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, was not only embarrassing and scandalous, it tells a lot on the quality that was on the table and the ways of doing business, government business. I have been privileged to work in the circle. The procedure of taking money out of the central bank by a public servant is known. You go to the Ministry of Finance, the permanent secretary will sign the documents, it will go down the line to, you know, the directors, and then a letter will be given to you, to the central bank. You go to a director or whoever the desk officer is, and then you will pick the money. I have done that when I was in government. There was never a time in our history that I would come to believe that a public servant will just write a letter to the central bank directly, almost avoiding these checks and balances. It does not tell well on, you know, our own, you know, integrity as a people, as a nation, and the government.
So, but how much question can we then ask of systems? Because different governments have come, different governments have gone. Can they then pump their chest and say they put in systems? Because this clearly now, this loophole exists because there's a lacuna somewhere in the system and the structure.
Yes, I think basically, and I don't want to be seen to be kind of patronizing, patronizing or supporting my brother, Alhaji Salihu Lukman. But look, the government came in when PDP was defeated in 2015. Came in, like he said, on a populist, cult following. But then it slowly transcended into what I will call not an oligarchy in a democracy, but something close to that, where the rules were literally, not all of it, most of it, were set aside. Quality minds were taken off the system. And anybody who seemed to have had a different view, it was like you challenging Buhari, not challenging the system whenever there was a fault.
But does it matter that the CBN governor was appointed by the PDP at the time?
It doesn't. It is the attitude. It is the conduct. It is the way of doing business. Look, I was privileged to have been appointed the Director General of the FRCN by President Goodluck Jonathan. And I was 2 years on. I rose from the system. I knew nothing in my entire life apart from broadcast journalism. I rose through the system to become a DG. I wasn't politically appointed. 2 years on, we were asked to go and lumped together with political appointees. And there were many of us like that. So what you had was, you pulled out people that are professionals that were to have given the government a sort of check, and balance mechanism. To say, no, this is not the way it is done. You are coming anew. This is how we go about it. And it was like job for the boys and anything goes. So what you see is what you get. Garbage in, garbage out. And I don't like to blame people. I like to blame systems. If there was a breakdown...
Isn't it people that will put in place a good system?
Yes, look, like everybody said, and I respect Buhari as an elder statesman. But look, Chamberlain, as far as I'm concerned, Buhari is history, and history will judge him, rightly or wrongly. But right now, we have a president in charge. He should step forward and take responsibility. No alibis, no innuendos, no excuses, no any of the buck passing that we are used to. We have a country that is in dire straits. We have a people that are shackled by hunger and deprivation. And the poverty is not only stinking, but it's stinging. And we are almost in an economic emergency. I would like to believe that those in charge, those in the corridors of power, will look at it from a broader national perspective and see the challenges as not only, challenges per se, but an emergency that must be addressed and should be addressed quick and fast.
Mm. But, some of you have said that the former president is history now, and we need to face the future. Mm. But part of the reason why we're having this discussion is that we cannot extricate ourselves from the consequences of what was done in the past. I mean, some people will say that's currently why we're where we are. It's because of what has been done before. That's why, the economy is tanking in the manner that it is. And part of what we're seeing also at the court, where the SGF has denied in very, very clear terms, in very unambiguous terms, that letter purportedly written. Initially, I was wondering, do we pay for election observers? Is there any allowance? I mean, it kind of seems strange. Is there any allowance for election observers in the very first instance? Have you heard of that before?
Well, I mean, election observation, the way I know it, having related with civil society,
indeed,
is that it's a voluntary thing. It's not something that comes within the purview of governmental responsibilities, At best, maybe government can, not verify, what do you call it,
Authenticate
them. And give them access to certain areas around voting so that they could make pronouncement. But in terms of payment, I'm not aware of that. But generally, I think the point needs to be made, you know. And I think it's a positive development that as a nation, we are even discussing a number of these issues. I keep making the point, look, until our democracy grows to the point where internally within political parties, a number of these things can be scrutinized, you know, and parties can make pronouncements which can become instruction on elected representatives, then we are going to continue to have a number. Look, what we have from 1999 to date is that our democracy only succeeds in producing what we will call some form of dictatorship, which is why, I mean, I lamented, you know, that look,
very much like what he's saying, an oligarchy, like a royalty.
No, yeah.
You know?
It's almost we produce like emperors. When they take decision, if you question it, and that is what is happening. For instance, when all of a sudden, after the resignation of Abdullahi Adamu, instead of following the rule of the party, we even determine who succeed him. All of a sudden, we hear Dr. Ganduje from a different zone where the chairman should have come from. And when you question it, people see you as an outcast, which is the status some of us have now, you know. And look, my expectation of democracy is that everything should be open to debate. And those debates should go into structures of party, which should guide decisions of the party. You know, once that is not happening, and which is why for me, my major problem now is that we reduce democracy to the question of election. And which is now producing constant frustration because you invest some hope on a leader, and after 4 years, it turned out to be, it's not any different from the previous leaders you are not happy with.
While political parties, while we're waiting for political parties to get their acts together and, you know, be political parties in name and in deed, you have said that political parties need to be able to hold the leaders that they put in place accountable. Now, where political parties are failing, there are supposed to be other systems of government that hold. I mean, we're supposed to be in a democracy where there are checks and balances.
No.
Where other arms of government can hold one arm of government responsible.
You see, part of the problem we have today is the fact that it's not just government. You know, if you recall, before 1999, civil society was very, very strong in Nigeria. You know, labor movement was also very strong. You know, the engagement against military dictatorship was virtually driven, not from inside government, from outside government. Now, over time, the structures of civil society today, I mean, it's almost like small bureaucracies. People just use it for survival, you know, raise money, they are unaccountable to anybody, you know, and like that. Now, the reality is that government responsibility in bringing a number of some of these things in place is very important, which is why, again, we keep coming back to the whole issue of political reform. If you remember, one of the things that made it even possible for APC, for instance, to defeat PDP in 2015 was some of the reform initiated by President Erdogan, which, to his credit, was an admission that the election that produced it was faulty.
So while I'm going to, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to force what it is that you have said with regards to that. But what we're saying is that right now we have a state.
No, it comes back to the appeal on, for instance, President Aswaju. Because, for instance, now, everybody knows there is the need for reform in the polity.
There is.
No initiative.
There is. But right now, while we're waiting for that reform to start, we also know that there is a need for accountability. You don't agree?
No, that's exactly what the point we are making.
How do we begin to entrench that accountability? Because it looks like it's happening in such a piecemeal method or a selective method. As some people are saying, this is not holistic enough. For the scale and the depth of the rot that is currently coming to light, there needs to be, greater account. There needs to be a more deliberate, systemic, holistic method of accountability demanded, especially of the former government. You don't think so?
I mean, I have said so. I don't disagree with you. I agree entirely. But sincerely speaking, unless we get our parties right, what you are asking may not happen. We will be stuck in one place. We will be reproducing this same problem, maybe in even bigger scale, irrespective of power, whether it is APC or PDP. I'm not trying to discourage, but sincerely speaking, we must come back. And so long as the parties are where they are today, I mean, look at the crisis we have in state. The governors are practically unaccountable now.
Oh, yesterday the PDP BOT met, and it looks like they're trying to get their act together and come back and play their role as an opposition political party, at least for now. Do you agree with him that we have to wait until all things are set in place within our political parties before we can really get holistic or clear direction around accountability, looking at where we are?
I think there are two sides to this very important coin. When you spin it, when you have the coin on one side is the fact that we have a country that, like I said, and I will repeat it again, that is in dire straits. We have challenges that are empirical, that need to be attended to, and to be attended quick and fast. We need to fix the economy. We need to get Nigeria going. We need to dig in deep into our footnotes, our notes of resurrection of the economy and, if you like, realignment of forces politically, and rejig the way of, the conduct of doing business by political parties. I agree completely with Alhaji Lukman. But then you must come to the inescapable fact that we've gotten it wrong. As far as I am concerned, right now, the debate about political parties and their internal ways of doing business can wait while we face the larger picture, the bigger picture of taking Nigeria out of this quagmire of the economy. Look, as we speak, if you recall, in May 2023, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed power, the inflation rate was what? 23%? Now is 28, 29%, knocking on the doors of 30. You're talking about what? The price of commodities rise, 25, 35 naira per bag. Now is hitting 80, 85 in some places. Twice the national minimum wage, the average national minimum wage. And people are finding it difficult to get by.
Yeah, but
I want us to take the two, sorry, Chamberlain, together.
You will, because I think this comment from the former CBN governor, Emir Sanusi, feeds into what both of you have said here, because he says, quote, I've been, over the years, talking about the pending crisis ahead of the current economic hardship. Any economist who has studied monetary policy in the last 8 years knows that Nigerians will fall into this difficult situation. The difficult situation Nigerians are facing is just the beginning if the right decisions is not put in place, because Nigeria is not exceptional. Such situations happened in Germany, Zimbabwe, Uganda, and Venezuela.
Yes, okay. Let me say this from the onset. I have a lot of respect for the 14th Emir of Kano, Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, a banker of repute, an economist, an Islamic scholar, a notable Islamic scholar, and a gentleman who has a stage and a big voice, a critic, if you like, and someone who is known internationally and nationally, and I respect his views. But look, he is not in Tinubu's cabinet. He's not in the government. I would like to see the people in government take charge and own up to their responsibilities. If he is in the government, fine, we'll be talking about him and x-raying the things he said. I would rather, and I'm not in any way trying to ruffle any feather, sorry about this. I'm looking at the visit of the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, to the current Emir of Kano, in which the Emir gave out some messages to the First Lady to take to her husband. He said, look, Nigerians are in hunger, commodities and foodstuff and cost of living is getting very high. Insecurity is on a downward spiral, and that Nigerians are, expect that this government will address these issues. Now, let me tell you the way our own emirs operate, the way the system in the north operates. The Emir of Kano said these words to the First Lady, not necessarily his own words, but it's a coded message that may have come, and I believe and I am sure it has come out after due consultations with his colleague, and he was just made an instant spokesperson for the emirs to convey a message on behalf of Nigerians, on behalf of Northerners, to the president.
Mr. Salihu, if you can hear me,
And
just one moment.
It must be
Mr. Salihu, just one moment, if you can hear me. The conversation is actually quite interesting, the things that you're saying, but what both of you are saying, I mean, you have said that, look, let's face the big issue, which is the economy, the way it's tanking, the way it's affecting people and all of that. The question that I want to ask you is, how political is our economic challenges? How divided are we in terms of our approach, both at the federal and the state level? How coordinated would you say that the Nigerian economy is, both at the federal and the state level? Because unless there is that coordination, I don't know how quickly we can really move forward, Mr. Lukman. Beg your pardon, Mr. Salihu.
Well, okay. Look, as we are now, we are the political economy of the nation state is in disarray. Let's face it. We have not only the challenges of miscommunication or lack of communication or lack of interface and symbiotic attitude to governance, we also have, people who are just good at grandstanding, who just step forward to be noticed and recognized, who make statements, while the issue of governance is suffering. They do it more or less to protect or preserve or to eulogize and praise their own, boss at the top. They do not look at the issues in a more in-depth and more. They don't scrutinize the issues, so to say.
Is that then to say, Mr. Salihu?
Policy on board.
On that particular issue that you just raised now, is that to say then that we are ignorant of the issues, or we are just we're just papering over cracks, as Chamberlain would say from time to time? I ask that in the light of the core discussion we are having, about the certificate forgery and all of that. It would seem like some people are just interested in how it pleases, impresses, or serves their own purpose as opposed to other people.
There are systems in place, as you both gentlemen have said, and here we are talking about an allegation of up to $6.2 million. Mr. Lukman, that is not something to be swept under the carpet. You're talking about the fact that the political party ought to be playing a lead role. Where did we miss that? Throughout this Fourth Republic, it will seem like it's the same thing that we have been saying. It wasn't the same thing in the First, Second, and Third Republics. How did we get here, and how can we navigate our way out? Mr. Lukman.
I think if I can come in, we got in here because largely everything has been reduced to business as usual. You know, if you remember and recall before 2015, the debate out in the public around restructuring border on what needs to be done in order to strengthen Nigerian economy and create more opportunity that will translate to improve livelihood in the country. And as a party, I remember, being in opposition, we were very active in that debate. Now, ask yourself, between 2015 and now, what has happened to that debate? What has happened to all the critique and the recommendation we had when we were in opposition? Now, frankly speaking, this is where I think as politicians we have to continue to challenge our leaders. Once leaders cannot summon the courage to be adventurous and take new initiatives that will translate to new opportunities for citizens, we will remain stuck where we are. Look at the case of insecurity.
Mr. Lukman.
The reality of it we know.
Mr. Lukman, just 1 second. On that issue that you just raised now about holding the leaders to account, on the one hand, that is the job of the media, and you've also spoken about the responsibilities of civil society organizations down through the years. But then we also have a responsibility for the National Assembly here. The National Assembly has the job of oversight and representation. If such a thing, I dare say that the issue we are looking at from the former CBN governor's forgery allegation is just like a metaphor, just one of several that has happened. How would you rate the performance or the job of oversight functions and due representation of the National Assembly in this particular matter?
Look, I have said it. Everything is reduced to business as usual. The reality of it is that the National Assembly can do better. And not just the National Assembly, everybody can do better. Look, here we are, why are we complaining over the problem of economy now? Because in the last 8 months, the rate of inflation, the way it has created existential problem in the country. Many people are struggling to survive. Now, you expect, as a party, APC, look, as an advocate, when the merger was going on, the dream was that APC was going to turn out to be a social democratic party, meaning that the priority will be around health, education. The Nordic countries were the model of social democracy, which means public investment in education, health will be quite. And what has happened is that it may even have dropped under APC. And which is why we are faced with the crisis we are having. We talk about more than 10 million children out of school. You ask yourself, in the last 20, 30 years, how many new classrooms have we built? How many additional schools have we built? How many new teachers have we recruited? Not to talk of hospitals. So we have to come back to that. And this is why, for me, look, I'm engaging in this matter in the hope that something will touch the heart of President Asuwaju, who is today the leader of the party, the leader of the country, to come back and begin to initiate action in such a way that, look, I was talking about the issue of insecurity. Everybody knows this country is under police. There are so many ungoverned spaces in the country, which make it possible for criminals to operate freely. You know, the total number of police force.
If you can hear me.
Less than 500,000.
One of the major issues here, that is really understood, the impact of insecurity on food production and all. Well, Mr. Salihu, let me come back to you. You began the other time by talking about communication. And I'd like you both gentlemen to speak to it, but let me start with you, Mr. Salihu. Government communication needs to evolve. The issues that once people read certain headlines, they just see some things in the media. They see signature forgery allegation against the former CBN governor up to $6.2 million. And in their heads, they extrapolate, if this is just one, how many others are there that we are not even aware of? What kind of communication, how should the federal government or the related agencies be communicating with Nigerians now so that the suspicion, the trust deficit doesn't get any worse to the point that people don't listen to or consider anything from government serious? What kind of communication should be going out now to rebuild trust?
Well, there should be a holistic communication. There should be a communication that speaks to the norm that government must be held accountable, and the media and the medium of communication, you know, broadcast and print media, must step forward and up the ante to ensure that they hold the government and politicians accountable. And in doing so, we must appreciate the fact that, like when Buhari came on, he had a cult following. When Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on board, he had a crisis, in my view, of confidence and a crisis of transition, which, you know, dealt a huge blow to the nation's economy. Look, when he said, in his broadcast speech to the nation, or in his address to the nation of the Eagle Square, that he was going to remove oil subsidy, he forgot that he was transiting from the mindset of Lagos. He wasn't addressing people in Taslim Balogun Stadium. He was addressing, it's a big stage.
But it was already done, the PIA, that subsidy was gone.
Yes, by the time he said it, everything came crashing, and it is telling on Nigerians.
No, but did he say anything new?
No, he didn't.
That was on the PIA.
Yes, what Nigerians expected, Chamberlain, was to have communication. Communication removes conflict. Contact removes conflict.
What do you mean
in the same manner? Communication in the sense that, look, there should have been a team in place of eggheads, of specialists, of economists, of technocrats that will look into the A, B, C, and D's of deregulation and removal of subsidy. There was no hurry. We are all on the same page that subsidy must go.
Do you know there was money in the coffers?
Unfortunately, the way and manner he bungled it cost Nigerians and Nigeria a lot of deficit in terms of trust and integrity.
Just briefly before.
Yeah, I mean, my point is that as it is now, communication is basically like, is it the repository, you know, basically dumping information on citizens. I think it has to change. We need problem-posing communication strategy, whereby, for instance, you are engaging actors. I mean, for instance, the whole thing about removal of subsidy. If it is carried forward by way of engaging marketers, engaging trade unions, and sitting down to now say, okay, this is the way to go. Now that we know we are not going to pay subsidy again, prices are going to increase. What do we do? How do we...
Some say, is it foolproof? Because the last time they tried it, part of those in your party were those who resisted it. I said, no.
No. You see, the main point, you know why the problem is? The problem is there is no local production. Now, how do you engage stakeholders to ensure that, for instance, the whole thing, we were told refineries will bounce back and start producing by December. Are we there? We are not yet there.
Gentlemen, we thank both of you for coming on. Saliu Lukman, former Vice Chairman, APC Northwest, and Laden Saliu, former DGFRC and former Team Lead, Media Advisory Committee of PDP Campaign Council. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you.